taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. May 15th, 2019, the Wednesday evening edition of the show. Hello everybody who's already active in the live chat. It's great to see you all here. My name is Ashtonity, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian.
Hello. I am back from my excursions today. It was quite fun. It was quite engaging. It was quite interesting. Mm-hmm. It was definitely not illegal, and it was definitely not doing anything shady for various reasons of gaining information for you all wonderful for all these wonderful folks. There we go.
A little tired,
I can English. I am exhausted. It has been a long last 3 weeks, and it's only going to get busier as we go into this little thing. I don't know if you've heard called E3.
Yeah, I think it's. I do believe that stands now for Epic 3, but we'll dive into that in a minute. If you are listening live today, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough. And it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. Subs and comments also help greatly in that respect. If you want to help promote this content, you can do that. Any kind of engagement helps, encourages the YouTube platform to promote our content. So we really appreciate all of that. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well, and we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two, or in some cases a week or two, to get the podcast up to the audio platforms. So if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. Ever since we did the schedule change, I just keep forgetting to do the audio platform. And so I apologize for that. I'm trying to get better with that and, get the podcast up there as soon as possible. But still, quickest way to get all the info and, of course, to listen live is to tune in on the Triple S League YouTube channel. All right. Hello, everybody. We've got Alex Ginger, we've got Neon Arcade here today, we've got Great Dur the Third, we've got Ghost Fixer, Kazra Azad, and there were Tobias Shelley. There were a number of you chatting like an hour or two ago. I had to refresh the page, so some of the messages are gone, but hello and thank you to everyone who's been busy in the chat before we even started the podcast. That's always great to see. And now Cyb is going to regale us with a story of something that happened at the grocery store.
It wasn't the grocery store. It was, so it's like cookie day or some garbage was recently. Anyway, so they're giving away cookies, and this dad walks in with his little daughter, and she's not a toddler. She was he wasn't doing this to teach her how to speak. He was doing this to get her over the fear of talking to people, I think, because she was super shy, as she was walking up, just enormously shy. And he walks up to the thing, and he's like, don't give her a cookie unless she asks for it. So the lady behind the till is like, okay. So then the little girl walks up, and he's like, all right, you go ask her for a cookie, because it's free cookie day. You get a free cookie. All you have to do is ask. And the little girl looks up, and she's like, she can't make eye contact. She looks down. She's like, hides behind her dad's leg, and then she just keeps pulling on his pant leg, trying to get him to do it for her, and he goes, no, you got to do it yourself, and if you don't do it, you're not getting one. And so it's back and forth with this for about a minute and a half before he's like, all right, well, I guess we'll get another cookie another time. And she starts to tear up, and he bends down, he pats her on the head, and he's like, look, you can go do it, just go do it, be brave. Turns around, he kind of pushes her, so she kind of walks up, and this tiny little super timid voice goes, cookie, please. And the lady gives her, because she's like a dog, right? Like a dog that you're hanging a treat in front of, except it's the reverse, right? This older lady wants to give this child a cookie, and is prevented from giving her a cookie because her dad is quite serious, and they're obviously trying to get this over, get her he's trying to get her, used to talking to people and get her out of, break out of her shell a little bit. But I gotta say, the enjoyment on her face and how her eyes lit up and how suddenly she actually like registered a couple of the other people that were standing around, and she didn't seem to be upset anymore. In fact, she was really, really excited. So this is one of probably about 3 or 4 stories that I've heard in the last about week about young kids overcoming like fears of stuff like this, and it reminded me of some of the stuff that we've talked about on the podcast before. How it's important to try and get over challenges and to complete them, and really that's what gaming is about. And gaming overall is like yes, it's for fun and it's engaging, but the best games are not games that you just autopilot through. The best games, well, except for there's this one game that you autopilot through, and everybody who plays it loves it, and they just play through it, and it's like one of their top 10 favorites, but that is for a completely different reason, and no, it's not what you're thinking. Every other game, though, that you have to struggle and try to get through, that's hard, ends up sticking with you usually a lot more. There's a couple other things like certain scenes or graphics or the occasional thing, but they often don't hold a candle to that moment that you stood on top of the heap, so to speak, or the hill, or whatever you want to say. I want to say the first time I felt like a real rush of like satisfaction was when I landed Mario on the very top of the flag after the first level, which I had been trying to do for probably about an hour. I was like 8, I want to say, somewhere around there. And it's like, holy crap. When you complete something that's hard, that's a good feeling. And that's really what games have been about. And I wish that more of the developers would understand and remember this. Because boy, do we have a lot of stuff that is pulling away from what games are supposed to be about and driving them towards something that games are not about. Mostly profits, mostly, nickel and diming people, not being truthful, telling lies, being a dick, constantly trying to screw people over.
Well,
and it gets worse and worse and worse with every week. So
well, and I'm in full agreement there about when it just becomes about making a profit and giving the player an easy way out for a few bucks, and then kind of getting them addicted to that cycle for profit. I agree that that's bad. I do want to bring in the counterpoint to something you said, though, and this kind of relates to A Plague Tale: Innocence, which I was going to talk about later, but maybe we'll talk about it now. We'll see how this goes. But some people are interested in games not so much for the challenge and the accomplishment, but for the story. And if there's a really good, really compelling story, or they just want to be a part of the atmosphere. And I'm speaking as a gamer who appreciates a really good challenge, but I also respect that, there are some people who want to play walking simulators, who want to play these story-driven games where it's somewhat interactive, but doesn't really offer them a challenge. And I would say, that is a legitimate style of gaming as well.
No, that is. But I have a hard time classifying those as games versus like interactive media. And interactive media is like, it's like something where, and there's a couple of them. So like that Android game that was on the PlayStation that I haven't played yet, but apparently was really, really good, where you play all the different androids as they're, becoming self-aware, more or less. That game's a great example of it. It's like, it's a storytelling game, and it's not necessarily a game that requires skill. It just requires you to be invested in the story. And I think that's like more interactive media kind of thing. I'm talking about, like planning out how to like beat somebody in either PvP or complete a really difficult PvE mission or something like that, or that kind of stuff. I kind of count those more as actual games. It's like, it's like the person who plays solitaire calling themselves a gamer. It's like, no. Until you've ripped the skull off a demon from hell, you're not actually a gamer. You're I don't know what to call you.
That's a pretty arbitrary definition. And I will just say, I personally, I don't like the whole art. I don't like people deciding whether or not other people are gamers or not. Granted, I would not consider someone who only plays solitaire on the computer as the same thing as what I am, right? But
yeah,
it's not just that.
I'm not using it. I'm not using it as a like a rubber stamp to like allow.
But sometimes it's this derogatory thing, like, "Oh, you're not a real gamer."
Yeah, no, I don't mean it like that. I just mean in general. It's like there's gaming that requires like skill and in-depth thinking, and then there's normal games that you kind of just sit back and enjoy. And those are still games. There's very much still games, but they're not. I'm not talking about two totally different things. It's like apples and oranges.
Well, yes.
They're still fruit, but one is an apple, one is an orange. So
yeah, absolutely, that's for sure true. And I'm going to contrast. Well, we're gonna experience a bit of a contrast later when we talk about Rage 2 and also Plague Tale Innocence, as I've been playing both of those this week. So I've got some thoughts about those, but we've got some news to get to first. We have some interesting tidbits about Cyberpunk 2077. There's been sort of a marketing leak, and the legitimacy of it is questionable, but there are some corroborating factors that we're going to dive into. That kind of give some legitimacy to it as well. So
that's not the only one we will point out, and I will point out this now, so that everybody hears it early on in the podcast. Everybody can sink their teeth into this. Heads up, we're gonna start hearing about some leaks from and people giving you the. You have a lot of females in your household. You know when females are like nodding at each other and they can basically just read their minds. Yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of that kind of stuff happening on Twitter and places. I think we just had one just a few moments ago, where people are gonna be like, guess what? I can't tell you though, but guess what? I really can't tell you, but you really need to guess what. Oh my god, you need to guess what? Oh my god, you need to guess what? What is it? I can't tell you. We're going to get a lot of that stuff from a lot of people, referencing, I'll just spit it out, referencing Cyberpunk. They're starting to like fill up certain things and certain settings. And no, I'm not speaking from any inside source. This is just like me putting two and two together. Again, it's like what's that old term that Sherlock Holmes uses?
Elementary.
Conspiracy theories are impossible. Large groups of people cannot keep secrets. It's that kind of thing. It's like we're going to start to see more and more of this stuff, because if you're going to be showcasing a major game at E3, you don't just line this stuff up 45 minutes to the show on Sunday night. You line this stuff up starting about nowish.
Yeah.
So
you send out invites to people and don't tell them we invited you to this closed door session for our game, and then they go on Twitter and say, I've just been invited to a closed door session for a game. I can't tell you what it is, but it's the game I'm most excited for. And
well, now you're giving away the person who we're talking about.
Well, he made a public tweet, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, it's like we're going to start seeing more and more of this stuff as we come closer. And no, we have not received an invitation yet. We're still very much open to, of course. But however, we've still not received anything official. So this is just reading the tracks in the sand,
right?
And,
all right, and more on that in a moment. I just want to. There's a couple of things I want to knock out first, because getting into the Cyberpunk stuff is a little bit complicated. And we're going to do, a bit of a deeper dive there about what some of these things mean. Just a couple of stories that we can knock out fairly quickly here. So Ubisoft's upcoming pirate game Skull and Bones has been indefinitely delayed. It's been delayed. It was delayed a couple of times, and then now it's been delayed indefinitely. And Cyb, you're theorizing that the game is dead in the water.
Game is... Sorry, I need to pull this up here because this was really, really good earlier today. It looks like Skull and Bones is indeed dead in the water. I don't think they will be able to find safe harbor for their release. They won't get to sail on the open seas. It has definitely gone down to Davy Jones' locker. Couldn't swim with the sharks anymore.
What about the whales?
The whales couldn't save it.
The whales can save anything.
Yeah, Moby Dick came in and took out the potential for any whales coming up. This is I make fun of it because like sea stuff is really fun to do. But yeah, Skull and Bones. They lost their creative leads. They lost a bunch of their like core people who had the vision for the game. Basically, all they're left with now is just a fancy ship-to-ship fighting system with multiple ships. I know, I see that. Yeah, it's rough news for people who were looking forward to it, but there were parts of the game that were missing entirely. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of issues with progression. There were a lot of issues with the same thing that you kind of had happen with Sea of Thieves was basically what's the point? It's like, yeah, it's cool to float around and attack some stuff and get some cool loot, but what do you actually do with it? And they hadn't built that system up as far as what I'm hearing. They didn't have a really fleshed out economy. They had tried to incorporate a little bit too much of a pay to win kind of microtransaction system into it that ended up just kind of ruining the balance of the game. And as soon as you ruin the balance of the game, and yes, I've definitely talked about this before, how when whales can buy the biggest and best thing, they get the biggest and best thing, they roll around with it for a few days, and then they quit altogether. Because you're now the top, and the top is boring. What's the old saying? They climbed the mountain peak, got to the top, and found that there's nothing there. It's like that happens a lot with microtransaction games. It happens a lot with games that focus on trying to get you to buy. And Ubisoft has been, they've been making some pretty good games, but they've also been pushing the microtransaction a little bit too hard lately. So I think they were left rudderless.
You got to stop with the puns, man. Down. You're killing us.
I know. So, just generally speaking, this is with the core people leaving. They probably got stuck. And I've said before, when you get stuck in development, and then you sit there, the longer you sit there, the longer that rut becomes. That longer that rut stays there, the deeper and heavier it gets on you. And we've seen dozens of games hit this thing and never get out of it. So this is really bad.
It's like run aground, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's definitely run aground.
This is me slapping my own hand.
So ultimately, unfortunately, I think this is it's going to be delayed for probably quite a while, and then they'll talk about bringing it back. They're going to talk about this. They're going to talk about that, and then if they don't get somebody who really walks in and basically takes it over, then I think that's it. So
fair enough. I think that's a difficult. It's a difficult game genre to pull off. I think.
Just it's to make not it interesting. Actually.
Well, just because when you're sailing on the ocean, like playing. Oh shoot! What's that? What's the other pirate game called that we played?
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves. Clearly, it's the most memorable game I've ever played.
It's actually getting a huge update at the E3.
Yes,
if my sources are correct, it's going to be they're going to show off a lot of stuff for the game, and it's still pulling okay numbers for streaming. Like there are still lots and lots of people who will get up and watch hours of this because there is something a little therapeutic. I don't know about sailing on an ocean blue and
yeah.
I don't know.
It was, as Sea of Thieves was enjoyable in a lot of aspects. The problem was it was such a big empty open world with not a lot to do, and it was kind of fun piloting the boat with your friends. but it took so long to get anywhere, and it just didn't offer a lot for what it was. I mean, yeah, it was kind of relaxing, just kind of experiencing being in the world and whatever, driving the boat. Granted,
there's currently 5,000 players watching this at the moment.
That's surprising, but that's interesting. So I mean, it's not a bad concept for a game, and I think the whole pirate genre is quite interesting. But I mean, I was curious to see what they do with Skull and Bones, how they would improve on the formula. Hopefully, maybe someday we'll get to see something like that. But unfortunately, it's looking like this one is a long way off, if it comes at all.
Yeah. So all right. So just getting stuck. When you get stuck in these ruts, it's very dangerous. It's most likely the end of your game if you can't quickly step in. So the longer this sits here, the longer they haven't announced somebody walking in and taking over, the higher likelihood that we will never see this game come out. Now, like you said, it's hard to pull off this game. It's not. There's been lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pirate games that have done pretty well over the years. And really it boils down to the economy and how you set up the economy and how you make it kind of complicated, how you set up the interactions between your ship and ports, and then having a base and that kind of stuff. And that's really where the hold is, because the sailing is nice and the ship to ship fighting is fun, but you need something that fills the gap between the journey, so to speak. And ultimately, I think they dropped the ball, like pretty badly. They dropped the ball on this and trying to track that kind of direction. So ultimately, I think they're probably going to suffer a total loss on this, because they didn't really think about that ahead of time. They just kind of sat and did nothing. It's like, yikes.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it is Ubisoft. A lot of resources behind it, but at the same time, I mean, when's the last time you saw a Ubisoft game win Game of the Year? I don't know if it's ever happened. I'm not sure. Don't know off the top of my head. But, all right. The other bit of news we wanted to knock out, we discovered this just before going live today. Our old friends at the Epic Games Store have purchased the top sponsorship spot for this year's E3 PC gaming show. Normally it's sponsored by companies like NVIDIA or IBM, like hardware companies. This year, major sponsor is the Epic Games Store. And so this is, I think, if it's a great move for Epic, I don't think it's a great move for the PC gaming show.
It's not a great move for Epic. They keep stepping on toes after toes after toes after toes. I don't know what they think they're doing. Like, between this and the other news, they've now flip-flopped on everything.
But they clearly don't care. Like, they clearly don't care about how the public perceives them. They are, as one person put it there, they would rather be feared than loved. And so,
yeah,
from that perspective, I mean, it does seem like a good move on their part.
I think that was Bell who said that. Bell said they'd rather be feared than loved. And unfortunately, that's a moronic idea. Like, that is so arrogantly stupid.
Do you think this will actually hurt them, though?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it just keeps adding to it, right? There's a long list of people who are like growing more and more annoyed with what Epic is doing, and more they're like, you know what? There's enough games on my list. There's enough things on my list that I'm just good. I don't need to play their content. I don't need to check out their latest thing. I can just move on without it. I don't need it in my life. And I think more and more that's going to start to happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we might as well touch on this. We also had news about them beginning to operate in China in the exact same way that they criticized Steam for not, what was it, 2 months ago?
Yeah. Yeah, 2 months ago, basically, they were asked if they were going to push into China, and they said no, because currently the wonderful beautiful people, and I have to be careful on how we address this stuff, because they're really starting to crack down. That social engineering behemoth of a watchdog group of Big Brother looking over your shoulder every minute of the day is getting scarily powerful. So let me just say this quite clearly. China is doing so well in helping all of their people get access to the greatest of stuff, because it's just so loving and kind to control everything that your citizenry does and plays and whatnot. And Epic made this point that only a wonderful, beautiful nation that, valued, sorry, not nation, government benefactors of truth and beauty will know exactly what you need to play and when and for how long and how much. And that system of, again, the wonderful hand of the strong party on your shoulder directing you to make sure that you only play certain things for a certain amount of time. So basically, Epic said that this is good and that this is wonderful, because sarcasm totally is, and again, sarcasm, that they would respect this wonderful, brilliant choice. So Steam has been selling games to China for years, and they do so basically by not asking questions when people buy stuff from VPNs and stuff like that, bypassing the current government system. And Epic called them out and said, "How dare you sell games to people who desire the ability to play them?" Especially in a country where, for the good of the people, the government is ensuring what they can and cannot play. It's illegal to play certain things there, especially games that, talk about freedom of speech and the importance of the individual, et cetera, et cetera. And, and so they mocked them, and they said that what Steam is doing is illegal and is unprecedented. Of course, it's also making Steam a lot of money. So, yeah, there's that. And then I guess apparently at some point, Epic up and realized that, hey, they can start to make a ton of money too by selling games to the people in China underneath the nose of the government overlords. So they have then now started selling games in China by bypassing and using the same things the Steam has been using. So, yeah.
Well, if someone's buying a game using...
brilliant lie.
Yeah, if someone's using a VPN to bypass the government restrictions, I mean, first of all, what is Steam or anybody supposed to do about that? Like, are they supposed to go out of their way to police things on behalf of the Chinese government? That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and it's disturbing too, that some companies are like, "Oh yeah, come on, let's do it." That is frightening. Nothing. Not for the obvious reasons, for different reasons. I am scared for what a world government that does things exactly as China would do. I'm scared because I know that it won't last long. It won't. People are not. People push back against tyranny, and once they get enough tyranny, then it comes crashing down. But I'm not afraid about the tyranny because I've seen it up close. I've seen how to deal with it. I know how to live in it. It's not fun. It's not engaging. That's not the thing that I'm fearful for. The thing I'm fearful for is when people get the freedom and then all chaos ensues because they finally toppled the government, and it will topple eventually. Any government like China right now, everything that they're trying to regulate against is the fastest thing that's growing in China, aside from their debt load. Like, they're taking on, for every $1 that they go up in their market economy, they gain $5 of debt. So for people who are wondering, like, how does, oh my God, China's going to take over the world, you just got to remember that they're building debt faster than any nation ever in the history of mankind. like even more than the States has in the last in the 6 years, 2 years ago plus the, how do you say this? 4 to 6 years ago, the 2 to 6 year, no 2 to 10 years ago. Yeah, that's how you say it. 2 to 10 years ago, the American debt ballooned by 5 times, and China is trying to outpace that on an epic scale. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So at any rate, I don't want to get bogged down with that. But, ultimately it won't stand. So Epic has done a 180 on what they promised. They promised that they wouldn't go and sell games to China because China hasn't allowed them to sell games. And now they're suddenly going, okay, well, if Steam's doing it and they're making lots of money, then we're going to do it too. And then they turned their back on another thing that they just did. It's like that they promised that they wouldn't do. And it's like, what was the other one? I don't have my notes.
I don't know, but anyway, I didn't want to dwell on this for too long.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Yeah, it's
too late.
The look of surprise on my face at this is non-existent because this is utterly becoming predictable for them to do stuff like that.
Yes.
Now, and as far as buying the sponsorship at the Epic or at the the PC gaming show, I mean, there's always sponsors, but yes, due to Epic's public perception and I think it's going to come down to, for me, it's going to come down to how much do they dominate the show. We do know that they are going to be announcing more Epic exclusives. So, how many? We don't know yet. But we'll just leave it there. Epic is trying to take over the world, basically. So, all right. A couple of people are asking, have we talked about Cyberpunk yet? No, we are going to dive into that right now. And what we have for Cyberpunk this week, we have a bit of a marketing leak that took place, and plus some other information that ties into that. Plus, Cyb's got some stuff. We've kind of got a smattering of information from a variety of different places that all kind of tie into the same thing. All of it tying together into just more evidence that this game is coming this year. Of course, we're not guaranteeing it's coming this year. We're just saying it looks like there's a pretty good chance. A while back, Cyb, you were saying like a 65% chance. Now you've upped that a bit.
Yeah. So again, it's like my estimation is that within the high 85 percentile that we're going to be playing this game by this time next year. That's my current kind of sitting at, and I'm not guaranteed because again, if they want to delay to add multiplayer, if they want to delay to do some major additions, if they want to delay to do any number of things, that is entirely within their call, and their leadership has and will make those choices at the drop of a hat. So this is something that you need to remember.
There can always be delays. Yes. But it's starting to look pretty concrete. We're gonna dive into this right now. So there was a post made to Reddit, and this is the part where the veracity of this can't be fully established, but there's some clues that give us some indication that this could be 100% legitimate. One of them being the fact that the post no longer exists, and in fact the user's account has been completely deleted. I wasn't entirely sure what to make of that. I wonder if they got in trouble with their employer. But do you have any theories on that, Cyb? Well, let's read the post here. So, someone made a post in the Cyberpunk game subreddit claiming to be an Alienware employee, basically an employee of Alienware, the PC manufacturers and hardware manufacturers they make really good gaming laptops and other gaming hardware and stuff like that. So according to this Redditor, they attended an Alienware hardware training event, and that had promotional material for their new laptop plastered all over the wall, a Cyberpunk 2077 edition of their laptop that was coming later this year. But they couldn't tell us, I'm just directly quoting the post here now, they couldn't tell us when or what exactly the partnership would entail, as they had not received permission from CDPR to announce it yet.
Remember, they were also verified, which is really important to point out, meaning that this person is verified in the role that they have. So it's been checked on multiple points, and it's been guaranteed that they are actually in this position. And they pulled it down because they realized that they just kind of said something that they kind of weren't supposed to. So this is
okay. That's interesting. But why delete their entire account?
Because it can be traced back to them, and they would get in trouble because they weren't supposed to say this. This was all supposed to be hush, hush, hush.
Right, gotcha.
I knew about this one. I knew about some others that I accidentally talked about on Sunday. There's some other stuff in the works. Not all the stuff that is in the works is going to get out. However, the stuff that is building is definitely going to get there. And J-Man, just give me a minute, because we want to do the I'll give you a shout out after we finish this little section. But what happened is, and what's really important to remember, is that these companies start up these kind of bids for this kind of stuff. They start working on this stuff. They do some mock-ups, then they do some pitching, and they get the ball rolling, so to speak. And whether or not that's ultimately what you'll end up seeing or not, you know, some of that stuff makes it, some of that stuff doesn't. So there's still lots of stuff it's kind of up in the air. However, you don't make, like, you can make a headset, right? A headset, you plug it in, it's fine. You can find a headset from 10 years ago, works fine today. You can find a headset from 15 years ago, and as long as you have an adapter cord, works fine. If it's not set for the current thing, you know, headsets are kind of universal. Mice, they're pretty universal. Keyboards, now you're starting to get technical, because now there's circuitry involved, and there's computers, pieces, and bits and stuff like that. But what about a laptop? Well, a laptop is a really important thing to note, because a laptop is basically something that you play the game on. And if you're an avid gamer, you usually have, one big expense every 2 to 3 years is your gaming rig. And it's really important that you have a really good gaming rig, right? And, you know, if you're going to advertise for a gaming rig for a game that's not going to come out in 2 years, your gaming rig is going to be obsolete by the time the game comes out. So, in some cases, let's take a look at this logically, because this is what we do. We dive into this stuff logically. Couple of really, really, really important key things to remember here. Very important is that the companies that have lined this stuff up, they have never lined up a bid to create a laptop, or to create a stylized box, or a PlayStation, or, you know, any kind of a console, handheld, whatever. You don't get that stuff made when the game is most likely going to be delayed 2 to 3 years down the road. They'll work on the kind of the generalized concepts for it, but they're definitely not going to go out and actually make a bunch of these. Because why? Well, unless the game has been put on a delay by an emergency, or something bad or terrible has happened, and you were going to launch it this year, but then suddenly you're not. You don't do that stuff. That kind of a maneuver is what people get fired for. It's a stupid thing to do. It's a really dumb thing to do. Say, hey, let's make an Xbox current gen for a game that's coming out on the next generation 2 years from now.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it does make it makes zero sense. So
if you're designing hardware that's stylized for a particular game, you are designing it for the game to be played on that hardware.
Yes. So laptops are notoriously, like, a laptop being released this year is not going to be sold in 2 years from now on any major site for, like, anything other than, like, a deal, right? A quick, buy it while it's, 80% off or some crap like that. It just doesn't work that way. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but, bear with me. The idea that this thing was out there, got leaked, it wasn't the first time this has been leaked. It wasn't the first time this information has found its way out of Alienware. They got bought out recently and a little while ago, and they're standard more big corporate. Big corporates have a bad habit of leaking stuff. So this isn't the first time. It's not the last time. Yeah, this is probably going to happen. And again, this guy put this out here because, again, he's in the industry. He's hearing the stuff. He's assuming that, hey, this really does kind of lean in the sense that we're going to get this game within the next 12 months.
Right.
This is really, really, really starting to lean more this way. And between the other stuff that's been going on, between the other people that are tweeting, and between all this other stuff that's being set up for E3, and all this kind of stuff that again, I told you a couple weeks ago, I think it was, where the closer we get to this, the more you're going to start hearing consensus between the big, all the big people that are connected to the industry. They're going to start hearing more rumors and more rumors. They're going to start hearing things from, people who are on LinkedIn, or people who are on Twitter, or people who are on Facebook, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to start seeing things get updated. They're going to start hearing this from this person and that person. And while they don't have any concrete, super awesome, mega evidence, everybody knows and can feel that this is coming. And you start to look at more and more of the news revolving around E3. We're hearing more and more about Cyberpunk's going to take the show this year. Now, is that speculation? Well, a fair bit of it is, but a bunch of it is not speculation. A bunch of it is the stuff that people know, that they're there on the show floor, that they see what's going on. They understand that there's a couple of there's a couple of titles left for this current generation, but this is a big one. This is a big one that's going to send the current generation out with a bang. And then it's going to come back again, even bigger and better, as a re-release on the next-gen consoles.
Right.
And that's and again, we've talked about how the importance of CDPR taking advantage of that to the fullest effect that they possibly can. That's what they're going to try and go for. And so that's totally acceptable. That's totally what we want to see.
Alod's Ginger in the chat. Sorry, I'll let you get to that in just a sec. Alod's Ginger in the chat just posted another screenshot from the conversation on Reddit before it was deleted. Thank you so much for that. So the person who made the OP, the original poster, in a reply a little further down the page said both the trainers and account managers were being as cryptic as possible. But one of them even mentioned the staff incentive for them, that being the laptops, I guess, which is launching later this year. So it looks like it sounds like, according to this, that the laptops were definitely coming in 2019. All right. And you were going to do a shout out to somebody?
Sorry, my mic, I think Discord's having a crap. Am I still here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to shout out J-Man, my little buddy J-Man here. J-Man, I actually saw him IRL, and so we talked, so I'm going to give him a shout out. He's got a cute little YouTube channel, so if you're into the Fortnite stuff, you can go check out his video. I will link it in the chat, because I promised you, if you manage to find me IRL, I will probably do the same for you. So I'm just going to put that out there. Congratulations.
That almost sounds like a challenge.
For one of the first people to find me and to see what I look like in real life, and to see all the robotic pieces that I had hiding underneath my... Oh, wait, yeah, you can't see that stuff because I have it hiding. Right.
You hide it really well. All right, just a couple more things that give some credence to this Alienware Cyberpunk partnership that looks like it's coming up here. There's an image floating around the internet that is of it's the car from Cyberpunk 2077 we're very familiar with. There's an image of this car sort of in the Cyberpunk world driving into the screen of an Alienware laptop. It's a really well done image. It looks really interesting. Looks like a promo image. There's also another sort of less interesting image just of a laptop sitting in front of a screen from the Cyberpunk trailer. But anyway, this image with the car driving into the laptop. I found this while I was doing some research earlier today, and so I did a Google image search and found that this is being used in some very interesting places. It's being used in articles about alien laptops on some tech blogs, but it's also being used as one of the promo images on Amazon for some of Alienware's laptops. Now, I wouldn't say this, sometimes you have fan-created or fan-made artwork that winds up getting used in news articles. So I wasn't entirely sure at that point when I saw it on those tech blogs, but when I saw it on Amazon, I thought, this seems to be lending a little more credibility that this is an actual official marketing image. So that was really interesting. But then, I believe somebody on our Discord drew our attention to this. I cannot remember who, my apologies. But back in March, Alienware made an interesting tweet saying, "Rule the streets of Night City in Cyberpunk 2077 on the Alienware Area 51M," which is a laptop they were marketing for. The power of desktop packed into a show-stopping laptop. I don't know how we missed that back in, this tweet was from back in March, but there's been a lot.
I didn't miss it. I just, again, it's like I'm surrounded by this stuff all day long, and a bunch. I constantly keep forgetting what I haven't and what I can share or what I can't share, and I try and I've always got to be refreshing myself. I'm like, okay, did I talk about that? No. Can I talk about that? Yes. Can I talk about that? No. I definitely cannot talk about that. And if I talk about that, somebody's going to get fired.
Yeah. So this, and it's even got, a little, this tweet even has a little 8-second commercial video attached to it, which is just sort of a cyberpunk scene that fades out into, a picture of the laptop. And I don't think you can really put something like that out there unless it's, officially licensed. Unless there's if you're officially tying somebody else's product to your product, I think, there has to be a deal there. There has to be some contract signed somewhere. So this is looking very, very legit at this point, even though, there may be some reason to question this one particular Reddit post, even though on its own, because it was a verified user, it had some credibility to it. With all of the surrounding data, this is looking very, very solid. So there you go. More evidence that the game is going to be very likely coming this year. And we're going to start seeing Alienware Cyberpunk laptops in the near future. So, Kazra Azad, would love to see the image. Where can I find it? You know what? I'll just link it right here. I found it on Imgur. And, but it's kind of, it's been around the internet. But anyway, there's the link to it right there. All right. So, I guess that's all there is to talk about that. So, anyway, we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. All right, so we had a couple of anticipated games released this week practically on the same day. We had Rage 2 and we had A Plague Tale Innocence, and I managed to just squeak in under the wire to get a review copy of A Plague Tale Innocence. And I don't know why they send these out like the day of release and then say, don't post reviews before 3 hours from now, as if you have time to even play the game and download it in that time.
Well, you'd be surprised.
But anyway, so I was glad that, I got in a few hours early, so I got a bit of a head start on that one. And then I got into Rage 2, although not nearly as much as I would like to at this point. But anyway, I will give my brief reactions to both of those games right now. And I do have a review in progress up of A Plague Tale. Innocence. I guess I'll start with that one. So Plague Tale Innocence was pretty much blown away by the environments, by the story, by the atmosphere of the game. It was very incredible. The characters are great. The two child characters that are basically the central focus of the game are very well done. And so I'm definitely going to be seeing it through to the end. It's a fantastic, just a really gripping, really emotional story, and the setting is quite good. Now the one thing that I would say makes the game not for everybody, and maybe it's one that you just sort of watch a playthrough on YouTube to grab the story for it. The gameplay is very simple in terms of the actual gameplay parts, which involve a lot of stealth and and some environmental puzzles. So it's basically it's kind of a stealth game. I think it's a very stealth-focused game. You're sneaking around trying not to be caught in a lot of circumstances. There are some more heavy action parts. There are some chase scenes, which were actually quite fun, although they were very easy as well. It's easy. It's very easy. I'll put it that way. Now, I'm not all the way through yet. I don't know how difficult it gets near the end, and I'll be sort of updating that. I'll be putting out another review to discuss that once I've gotten to the end of the game. But it's not a game that you get into to be challenged by gameplay, and this is kind of what relates back to, what we were talking about right at the beginning of the show. Plague Tale Innocence is a game that if you want a really solid story and a great environment, and especially if you appreciate a medieval setting, you'll probably really enjoy this. And if you're okay with just sort of a moderate, I wouldn't even say moderate, I'd say easy to moderate challenge, casually challenging gameplay kind of a thing. The kind of game you might relax and play when you're a little tired and just sort of want to just kind of bask in a different world for a little while. That's what I would recommend it for. So I just don't want anybody going into it expecting some hardcore action game. You do have the sling, and you do use it for combat. You can fight some of the enemies, and there's even a boss fight that I encountered early on. But that is not the primary focus of the game. You use the sling for puzzle solving a lot. And there's a lot of what I would call stealth puzzles where you have to figure out the best way to sort of distract guards and get around and get through different situations. And there's also now the rats, which isn't too much of a spoiler because they used it in a lot of promos. But
yeah, it's in a lot of promos. It's actually what made me look at the game really seriously, because I saw that in one of the trailers. The wave of rats attack people, and the way that they moved on screen, I went, oh, that's some pretty good tech. We've seen stuff like this before, but this was the first time that they've rendered it so really kind of well, and also kind of that feeling of and it's a little bit of an inspiration for the enemies that I write about that I'm writing about in the book. Is one particular type of enemy that's a swarm type enemy, and I've always really appreciated that, and when I saw it in this setting, I went, "That's really cool. That's a really good looking system," and I really like the. I kind of started to go look at the characters and go, "Oh, that kind of makes sense. This is really good. I like this. Mm-hmm. This looks really fascinating. I'm really excited for this game."
Yeah.
I won't get to play it through and through for a while, but yeah. So sorry, keep going.
Well, the rats, the parts with the rats it's kind of a different kind of environmental puzzle where you have to just avoid getting eaten by these swarms of rats, but they're afraid of light, and so you use light to keep them away from you, and so you have to light lanterns and things to make it safe to cross different areas. But the sheer number of rats that get rendered on screen at a time is mind-boggling. It's almost overwhelming at times, and it creates just this really freaky ambiance because they have these glowing eyes and stuff, and they're squeaking all around you, and it's so if you like getting kind of creeped out, I wouldn't say it doesn't quite. I mean, it's borderline horror game at that point if you are into that kind of a thing. So I really quite enjoy. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, they put so many rats on the screen at once. It's quite a technical marvel, actually. So anyway, bottom line for that is that it's a really great game for a story, ambience, and basically creating an atmosphere. And if you know, just if you want to immerse yourself in a great video game world that is sort of, it's based in historical reality, but it does have some sort of mystical, fantastical elements layered on top of that. Really good. Like, I'm really enjoying it. Just don't expect a really... don't expect a huge challenge. Don't expect, revolutionary gameplay in terms of stealth. Although they do add some things into the stealth parts that I have not seen before. So just, like... The guards are somewhat predictable, but they react in some ways. Like, you mess around with a guard too much, he gets more and more suspicious, even if he hasn't seen you yet.
And then he starts calling people over.
He calls his buddies over to start searching and stuff like that. So, all right. If you want more detail, I did put a review in progress up yesterday that you can check out. So, I got really into detail about what I thought of the game so far, and I will do more of a review once I'm finished. All right, quick break here to shout out J-Man. Thank you so much for the super chat. Also, Andre Velasquez, I don't think he's here right now. I haven't seen him in the chat, but donated with the super chat like 12 hours ago. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Financial support helps us out a lot. Okay, Rage 2. Now, Rage 2, admittedly, I've not had nearly as much time to dive into that. I have about an hour in the game thus far. But it was a really fun hour. So I'm looking forward to diving back into that. It was, you know what? It was not at all what I expected in terms of the setting and that kind of a thing. But it was quite... It is what everyone's been saying it is. It's this action-packed rush. And I mean, right at the beginning, they throw you right into a combat scenario. And it serves as a tutorial, but it was not one of these... It's not one of those tutorials where it's like, pick up your gun and shoot at the target. No, they throw you in and, you pick up your gun and shoot at the mutant coming at you, or you die. So that was a lot of fun. Katriox is saying Rage 2 is fun as hell. Yes, absolutely. I had a blast, and I wish I could have played more of it before giving my impressions of it. And so I'll probably talk about it a little more on Saturday, and I'll do a review in progress for that as well. But the combat and the movement, the action, really good. There's just stuff going on the screen all the time when you're in those kind of heavy action sequences, and you have these special abilities that you pick up because you get this special armor that you have to go out and find these different things where, somewhere out in the open world, which I haven't gotten to that part yet, but you have to go around and find the locations that have different things that you can, that basically upgrade your abilities and give you new abilities. And I laughed so hard out loud when I got to this one part where you have to interface with some kind of a computer by actually putting your arm into this hole. And so I walk up to it, and the character's like, so what, I just stick my hand into this weird hole and hope for the best? And the quest objective popped up on the screen. Stick hand in weird hole. I don't know why, that just made me laugh really hard. So it's... You expect it to pop up saying, like, interface with the computer or something like that. It's like, no, stick your damn hand in the weird hole. That's your quest objective. So that made me laugh quite a bit. And it's a game that definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. It's really way over the top, but so far, quite enjoying it. And the other thing I wanted to say about it is... Oh, yes, my biggest complaint about it is when you turn on VSync, it locks your frame rate to either 60 or 30 frames per second. And I really don't like that, because then
Yeah, no kidding.
it's like, why? That means if I'm averaging like 57 frames per second, which quite frankly I'm okay with, no, it'll drop it down to 30. And so I'm having to play it with VSync off if I want any kind of a decent frame rate, and so I'm getting tearing, which is driving me crazy. Now, admittedly, it is about time that I do need to upgrade my rig. I do need to upgrade my graphics card. I should probably just get a new one. My processor is kind of old. But this seems...
about that, I'll make a very quick short segue here. So there's a lot of new graphical tech and big changes coming to PCs, especially in the realm of VR. Later this year, we're going to see a ton of this stuff showcased at E3 and around E3. We're going to be seeing a bunch more of it come out for the rest of the summer. So because my brother was asking me about whether or not he should go out and get a, kind of like a run-of-the-mill, kind of like basic setup for to play VR on. And I was like, no, don't waste your money, dude. Work the summer, get some extra job, get some extra work in, work like crazy, because the stuff that is coming out this fall and early next year is going to blow your mind, and it's going to be awesome. There's lots and lots of big advantages, or big steps ahead. We might even be seeing the next jump to kind of like the basically like Gen 2 of the VR stuff. Like we've been sitting in the really what boils down to like the Gen 1 stuff for a while now. We got Gen 2 on the horizon. It's going to look pretty darn cool. So, yeah.
All right. So, yeah. But I found that issue with the VSync to be unnecessarily restrictive, so I'm going to do some research and see if I can tweak some config file somewhere and change that, because that's really annoying that I'm getting all this tearing now when there's no need for it. I honestly would be okay with, like, if it dips occasionally to 55 or 50 FPS to have that smooth screen refresh. So, yeah, I don't know why they do that. But anyway... granted, I do need to upgrade.
Yeah. So general about the general combat and the gunplay and all that stuff. How's it shaping up? Is it pretty good, and it's strictly first person, right?
I believe it is strictly first person. You do pick your character at the beginning. There's no character customization. But you basically
pick your character, so there's more than one.
You can either be a male or a female. That's the only option you get.
Wow, so I didn't even know that. They really did not do a really good job marketing this. Like they kind of like just kind of plopped it out there, and that was about it. So
well, I wonder if they took the same approach that EA did with Apex there, because the initial response to it was not good.
Yeah, no, the initial response to it was
when people realized negative. That Rage 2 was what Bethesda was coming out with. So I wonder if they remained quiet on purpose and just kind of let the hype build organically. But so you pick male or female, and then it switches to first person. So it's mostly you're picking the voice you're going to hear. Michael says third person driving, so I think that's
hey, according to one particular dev over at actually two particular devs over at CDPR, that counts as full-on first-person and third-person options. Let me tell you.
Yes, we know you're bitter about that.
I'm still annoyed at that. Dick.
Anyway, well, you better hope he's not listening. Or she. I don't even know if it's he or she, but what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the combat. I found the combat to be now granted. I've only been through the one major fight, but it was really smooth. It was really, it was solid. It was solid, and I know that, there's tons of weapons and things that I have not had the chance to work with yet, and tons of abilities. So I'm speaking just from, this is like really big first impressions, but it seems like they put a lot of effort into making sure the combat is good. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, I hesitate to recommend it, but I mean, almost everyone I've talked to who has played it is saying it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to playing more of it. Hopefully tonight after we're done the show. Also looking forward to playing more of Plague Tale, just because I want to know what happens to these characters. It's a really interesting story. Oh, and I should say, like, they made these kids feel real. Often you'll have child characters in video games,
terrible. Yeah.
And you'll wonder, like, did the people who designed these characters, like, have they spent 30 seconds with a child before? You know, have they seen a child? Like, what even in Bethesda's games, the kids are just annoying. But yeah, they made these kids feel really real.
And that was something else that, like, I saw the work that they were doing on that before it came out, like with the early trailer stuff before it came out, not before they talked about it, and the effort that they put into those, like, making those kids, like, seem real, and that really got me interested. I was like, this is definitely something to pay attention to, because again, it's like I think this is the first game where you can play, like, two young kids like this, and it really, really gets, decent. And there's a couple of, I think there's like one or two 2D games that have kind of done that, but still, it's like, in this particular case, really, really happy, really, really quite impressed with what they've done so far. So yeah.
I agree. And if you're curious about it, our streamer associate Curie Mask is streaming it on her on our Twitch account this week and next week. And
we don't talk enough about what Curie's doing. Definitely check out Curie's streams. She streams multiple days every week. Go there if you're in the evening, if you're wanting to just kind of chill. She does all kinds of good stuff. She's still pretty young, still kind of learning the whole streaming gig thing. So yeah, hit her up and chat with her, because it's something that we want to push a little bit more. So
yeah, and you can go watch the archives of the videos. We might be moving them to YouTube. We haven't fully decided yet, but you can go to our Twitch account. You can go to our Twitch channel, I should say, and watch the archived versions of her videos. They'll at least be up for a couple of weeks there. So if you're interested in seeing the first few hours of the game, you can check that out. All right.
Yep.
I think we're done for the night. So thank you so much, everybody, for supporting this show. Thank you all for the great conversation in the chat. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Shannon Vega, Old Man Manson, and our two anonymous supporters, and our channel member, Captain Dammit. That's another option. Now, and also to our J-Man and Andre Velasquez for the super chats today. Now, we don't only appreciate, we absolutely appreciate the financial support. That's an absolutely necessary component to what we do, of course, and it's enabling us to do more and more. But there's stuff you can do that doesn't cost you a cent, and that includes slamming that like button and that sub button, and also leaving comments after the fact. Those help with the analytics. Those help with YouTube seeds that engagement, and they say, people like this content, I'll promote it to more people. But also, if you share it around with your friends or with your online communities, that helps us out a ton. Just bringing in new viewers is what's going to cause this channel to grow. So we really, really appreciate all of you who do that, and for just joining us for the show. So if you haven't already, be sure to slam that like button before you leave today. If you're listening after the fact on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Spotify, thank you for subscribing and reviewing the show. And hey, feel free to join us on Saturday morning for our next live show, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. Now it's Saturday morning, North America. It's in the afternoon in Europe, and we do have a lot of viewers from Europe as well. So we're glad that there's a time when you can join us that's not in the middle of the night. We don't see our European viewers much on the Wednesday night show, that's for sure, because it's like 3 in the morning for most of them. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ashton Unity, and on behalf of Subsidian, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.